for mentorship and engagement. This chat we're having is about professional development as well as a recap. I believe Melly's going to be here, so I'll save most of the convention recap for her. But obviously, we were in Atlanta this year. Got an opportunity to visit the College Football Hall of Fame. Outside of dealing with a little bit of water and AC issues the first couple days, it was overall a great experience. Again, I'll let Melly kind of talk about things on the back end as far as convention recap and stuff that was discussed within the board about plans moving forward with everything. But we'll kind of get started with everything. As always, of course, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Uncommon Sports Group. Here's their information, Clean Out for a Cause. Obviously, they're kind of doing their own thing, and they're doing their thing, kind of going from there. They've got a Kenyan trip coming up. They've got their locker room surplus as always. And then obviously for CUs, again, as I stated, coming into this, please put in the chat all your pertinent information. Cameras must be on. The QR code will be at the end as always. But please, as we've always stated, make sure your cameras are on, make sure you're on mute. And then also just make sure you're filling out all the information in the chat as well. We have our upcoming sessions. We're kind of still working on these as a committee, so these will start to come up more and more, but our next one will be on July 10th, and it's packing for travel, and it's making sure, having everything. We're going to talk about everything from domestic travel to potentially international travel, all these various aspects. So be on lookout for that. And then on August 14th, repairs, mishaps, quick fixes, kind of everything from, pads, uniforms, everything along the way that could come up that would be able to have quick little tips, and making sure you have stuff prepared for that as we move forward and plan things out. As always, always looking for mentors and mentees. So here's all this pertinent information. If you want to be a mentor, if you want to be a mentee, please feel free to reach out. Katie does a great job of coordinating all that, and we're always looking for more. I don't know if you heard her speak at the convention, but we're growing. We're always looking for more people, so please reach out if you're interested. We'd love to kind of continue that and go on from there. With that being said, I'll introduce our panel. I know Shannon had people on campus today, so she might be running in a little late, but I'm Quinn Patterson. I'm the head equipment manager at Trinity University. Then we have Dan Glenn from the University of Pittsburgh, and Shannon should be joining us later, but I'll let them introduce themselves. So real quick, I'll let, if Dan and Shannon are on, if they could, go ahead and introduce themselves, and I'll follow up and introduce myself last. Again, kind of give background on myself. Dan, are you here?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Dan, take it away.
Hi, everybody. My name's Dan Glenn. I'm the Assistant Athletic Director for Equipment at the University of Pittsburgh. I've done this at almost every level outside of Division III high school. I got my start in Division II at a small school in Michigan, Grand Valley State. Internships with Georgia State, Jacksonville Jaguars. Ended up back at Georgia State working full-time directly in Olympic sports. And then from there, got to start a football program at Kennesaw State, then to Notre Dame as the assistant working football. And then a little over a year and a half ago now, came to Pitt to be the assistant AD running the whole equipment department here.
Perfect. Thank you, Dan. Shannon, are you on here yet, or is she still running? She might still be running. Like I said, she had a site visit from the University of Northern Colorado group, so she said she might be running a little late. I told her she can just jump in whenever she wants to, but in the meantime, I think Dan and I can tackle it pretty well. Again, my name is Quinn Patterson. I've been at Trinity for 10 years now. I started out as the assistant in the fall of 2013, took over in the spring of 2014 from my boss who retired, became the head, and have been the head here since. Kind of covering everything. We have 18 sports, so I oversee everything from football, soccer's, volleyball, swim, dive, track and field, cross country, all of it. So, kind of have my hands in everything, kind of, you know, going throughout the entire, you know, process and knowing a good amount about everything. So, um, as we stated, this kind of the crux of this is mostly professionalism. I know Dan gave a great, talk at convention himself. I'm very passionate about professionalism within the equipment industry and just, workplace in general. Um, so using this as a guideline to, understand, touch on different topics and more kind of a free flowing, we can touch base, not really have structured questions, but overarching topics that we want to discuss. And then, you know, um, always at the end, if you have any questions, please, have an opportunity at the end for any questions and follow up. But we'll get right into it. The first one is, we want to talk about relationships, friendships, like, having those boundaries within not only your coaching staff, support staffs, but also student athletes, what's professional, what, is stuff that, you shouldn't really be doing in the workplace. Um, I'll kind of start with this one, and then Dan and I can pinball off each other and go back and forth with topics, but until Shannon gets here. But in my terms, obviously, I always consider it, friendly, but not necessarily friends with student athletes. You have these working relationships, but there's, obviously certain aspects you want to keep at a distance. Like, you're not talking about going out and doing all these other things. Like you can have friendly conversations, talk about like, different sports teams you like and what's going on within their teams and aspects like that. And then it's kind of similar with staff and coaches and other people is like you want to have friendly relationships. You can be friends with them outside of work, but understanding that when you're in the workplace, that certain aspects and certain topics are not to be brought up, especially around the student athletes and kind of in those aspects. Dan, can you kind of reflect on your own experiences?
Yeah, one of the things I've learned along the way, especially because, so Notre Dame, for example, being the assistant with football, I was kind of like a middleman between boss and student managers, and you have to walk a fine line of understanding, hey, we got to get this done, but also, hey, what can I do to help you get this done? Again, a lot of a lot of it with your staff, your student athletes, student managers especially is how do you approach it and understand everybody's different. Take the time to, hey, you know what? This person doesn't work well if I don't show them exactly what to do. And that's okay. Like everybody learns differently. And if you can teach them, they're a good pair of hands that you didn't have before. One of the things I also learned, especially here at Pitt, is I had to stop answering after hours. People call, text you late at night. You have to be able to set that boundary and make them understand that yes, you are here to support them in every way possible, but also, hey, I have a life outside of this. Like you're committed, you're dedicated day in and day out. But hey, you know what? After 6 p.m. when I get home, I'm sorry. I cannot answer the phone. Like, and it's hard because you want to make a good impression. You want to know they're there for you, but they will abuse that if you don't draw the line in the sand. And again, some places are better about it, some people are better about it, but from the get-go, draw the line in the sand as much as you can. Just say, hey, like, understand there's going to be extenuating circumstances, but take the time to go, hey, after this time, I'd like you can text me, I'll answer it first thing, but just we have to learn to draw a boundary.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest point with all of it is just having the boundaries and sticking to your boundaries and understanding, again, the differences between right and wrong. And like, obviously, again, you're not having certain conversations with your student staff, whether it's, your student equipment managers or even the student athletes themselves. So it's kind of having to making sure setting those boundaries and ensuring that you're not ever crossing them. Um, Kind of the next topic that I know Dan's got a lot of experience in is always social media. And this is Dan, we always look forward to your Sunday light lessons in the equipment room. But obviously, how do you portray yourself on social media? Whether it's your how what you're posting, and then also what your header say is on your pages and stuff like that. And you're being a representation of the university and not and yourself. So how do you kind of balance that? Dan, I'll let you start and take the lead there.
So I will admit I'm not great with the social media side of it. You might think I am, but The Sunday Post came about a while back just because I wanted to do something different. I think the biggest thing is understanding that you're walking a line of yourself and then who you work for, but also who you could potentially work for as well. I think that flies under the radar. I know of a few instances at a few different places where we were trying to hire somebody or someone was going to be coming in with us. And because of their social media, they got cut loose. And it was an easier transition to just cut that person loose compared to anybody else. I think you can find that happy medium ground of, hey, I'm doing the right things. I'm not posting crazy things. I'm not all about me. I'm about what I do, but you have to, you're a brand. Just like each place you work, you own that brand and your own brand, and you have to find the happy medium. And before I even started the foundations thing, I just called my boss quick and was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I want to do. Are you comfortable with it? And it's a hard question to kind of go to your superior and go, hey, like, I might do something that seems outlandish to some people. Are you comfortable with it? And make sure they know and get them involved. It's funny to watch my boss and our AD like my post every week, and it's like, oh, they're actually reading it. But find a way. And again, if you want to have one that's private versus the others, you're a little bit more public. Twitter for me is probably the more public one. Um, Obviously, if you're trying to do something professional, I would push LinkedIn on you, tell you to kind of go that route, or if there's another professional one out there, I'm not completely sure. I know LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Uh, hey, make your Instagram private. If you don't want people to see things, then be strict about it. And again, it's just all of it almost goes back to the boundaries with the first question is, and just having that time to go, all right, this is going to be for this. I'm going to steer away from this because more people can see it, or however you want to divide it up.
Yeah. No, thank you, Dan. I agree on a lot of those points. The way I treat it is like I also am not huge in social media myself. And I understand that, it's great to connect with people. If you have, equipment Twitter or Instagram pages and you're posting stuff and showing off your equipment rooms and the things you do, everyone always likes the swag and the helmets and whatever's, big and popular, the new uniforms. And so that's great. Like, and it's again, like the way I always see it is if you're going to connect with, people from the outside, again, like Dan said, you're representing not only the university, but yourself for current, future, everything. So, it's again, and I think there needs to be firm lines drawn and, like you said, boundaries. You're not using it to communicate with, anyone. Like you're not going into your messages and chatting with people. Like, I think that's a very dangerous line that a lot of, you see it all the time with whoever, like stories come out of athletes and whoever people in their messages and stuff like that. And I think it's, having those boundaries, setting those boundaries and making sure that you're doing everything right. And again, having conversations and being open, like Dan said, with your higher ups, making sure they understand what the purpose of, if you're going to create an equipment page, like what the purpose of it is and what your intentions are and what they expect to see out of it, kind of, using that moving forward, and how they kind of, do things. But again, like I keep everything personally public because in my mind, I'm not going to post anything or I'm trying to hide anything. I understand that it's visible for things, but at the same time, I respect what I'm doing and what I'm doing to not, post stuff that would be inappropriate or deemed, you know, doing wrong by the university or myself. So it's just having that internal message of yourself to make sure you're always doing the right things and representing yourself the best way possible. Um, and then kind of going from there. Um, Next, kind of going into attire, obviously, we work in nitty gritty job, like, you're not going to want to be in a suit per se for everything that you're doing. But like, when's the right time to wear like more comfortable gear? What's your game day attire? What's your travel attire? And then obviously when you're off the clock, making sure, you're representing yourself well as there. Just from my perspective for in the office, and again, it'll range from where you place you go. And as long as you have those communications with your higher ups and what their expectations are, it's obviously that's deemed what you seem fit during the workday. I'm mostly myself in t-shirt, shorts, just especially practices. Just so I'm comfortable. I know I'm gonna have to get my hands dirty. I know I got to be able to move and breathe and stuff like this. But then when it comes to game day or travel, I'm usually in a bun up or some sort of jacket, pants, slacks, athletic, not athletic shorts, but golf shorts, if you will, and then proper shoes and stuff like that, just to represent the university well, myself well. And then obviously, um, you know, part of the stuff is like attire goes with, and when you're interviewing and doing all these other things, you want to present yourself the best possible way. So, when you have interviews, wearing, not another team's stuff, or, you're wearing, button ups and jackets, stuff like that for interviews because you want to put your best foot forward. And then conversely, and when you're out, one thing that Katie and I talked about a lot is when you're off the clock, you know, you're allowed to go out and have drinks, but like maybe not wearing your school's, you know, logo and stuff like this. Cause again, you never know what can happen. You never know those things, and you're going to be your best representation of the university. Obviously if you're just going out for food, different, but if you're going to go out for like a night on town, you want to make sure you're representing yourself and the university properly. Dan, you have anything to kind of add to that?
Yeah, well, one of the suggestions I will throw at everybody is when you're doing a Zoom interview, even it might not seem like much, but wear it like I know it might be only head up, just wear a button down. Like when you show up in a t-shirt or you're clearly at work. I understand, but blur the background. Little things like that do make a difference, and people are looking at those details. For me, I'm a little different day to day. I polo or button down with pants almost every day, unless I have, hey, I know I have 5 pallets coming. I'm gonna wear shorts and a t-shirt or shorts and a polo. Um, but that's part of that, I'll admit, is personal. I had a vision when I decided to apply for the job here, and I'm just trying to make the vision come to life. I travel in a shirt and tie, games, events. I'm usually dressed in whatever the coaches are wearing to kind of match, or at least a button down and pullover of some sort. Outside of work too, I'm a little weird. I won't wear anything pit related. And a lot of people, oh, you don't support your university. No, it's just when I'm outside of work, I want to go do my thing. That's again, you got to look at it as your time, not their time. Yeah, the free gear is great, but I'm sorry, Nike, but I'm more comfortable in a Carhartt shirt.
Yeah, and I kind of echo Dan sentiment. Like I think it also depends on where you work and what their vision is, and what you obviously you set your own vision for yourself. But you have those top conversations with your higher ups, your superiors, and asking what their expectations are, and then kind of going from there. But again, like Dan said, I think there's a big thing to be said, since it's overarching with professionalism is how you present yourself for the interview process. Like again, like I think it speaks volumes for people who take the time to set themselves apart by wearing something professional, even like Dan said, in a Zoom interview, for stuff like that. Like it goes a long way. People do notice those things, so I think it's something to be noted, kind of as you go. um Next, big topic, and at least in my mind, and probably go on for this for hours, is communication. And this is everything spanning from, again, how you're communicating with the student athletes, your student staff, higher ups, also like the timeliness of how you're answering things, like, and the demeanor of which you answer things, like, making sure you're using proper grammar and, communicating effectively in essence. Just in my mind, whenever I've, again, as Dan said, you setting firm boundaries as far as, hey, I'm not going to be checking emails, texts, phone calls, unless it's extreme emergencies after 6 p.m., because having that work-life balance is something important. But then when you are responding, it's in timely fashion. If it's something urgent, replying within, not saying you have to be on your phone and checking emails every 2 seconds, but if there's an email that needs a response by answering it, but also answering it effectively, not just saying like, okay, or I'm on it, like just, giving them timelines, dates, everything like that. But again, as we kind of talked about a little bit with social media and other stuff, is like, texting or communicating with various people, the kind of stuff that's being said, keeping it on a professional level, and even on phone calls, like keeping it very professional, and having all those different aspects can go a long way, especially as you're trying to progress your way through your current work, your future work, everything on those involved. Thank yous and pleases and all these other things go a long way in communication. And so obviously always keep that in mind when you're going through different aspects of communication, and making sure you're answering in timely fashions and, effectively is how I always like to present it, and kind of go from there. Dan, anything on your end?
Yeah, one of the things I've had to learn too is different people like different things. Um, for example, my supervisor here, the more you put in writing, the better off you are because it sets a standard for later down the road if it comes back up. So it's heavy on the emails. Texting and phone calls are great, but some people might not be great at it. Obviously, depending on where you're at, you might work with a age group or somebody who doesn't really want to text or hey, just call me, but only call me at this time. It makes it complicated, and you just have to find ways to get creative. One of the things with communication with our student athletes, it actually all goes through teamworks. So no one has my personal number, no one has the phone number. It just through teamworks or do the WhatsApp or what else is it? Group Me is the other one I think. So just hey, if that's a better way for you to communicate, then just have to find what works for you.
No, I agree completely. And like Dan says, a lot of people that communicate different ways. And just obviously one level of the professionalism is one thing you can always do is have a paper trail. So, having those emails, having those communications with, whoever it may be, that way you can present it. Because if you have a conversation via phone call or text, it sometimes can get convoluted. But if you have emails, not that you'd ever want to be in these situations with, HR or other people involved, but you can present it and say, hey, look, I did everything, X, Y, Z, and presenting it and showing like, hey, like there's a paper trail list and following up on stuff. Even if you had a phone call or an in-person meeting, you're like, hey, just wanted to follow up on things we talked about and have bullet points, just so you can have it all in writing. You can never, you know, be too sure, and you want to always cover your bases as much as you can, um, and just kind of go from there. So that's why I always say like having emails is always, um, you know, the best thing, the best approach to things. Um,
Even following up with an email too after a phone call or something. Hey, just want to rehash this quick so we both have it. Because again, like depending on where you're at, who your supervisor is, there are other responsibilities. They could get a phone call 2 seconds after you hang up, and suddenly what you talked about is gone to the wind. And obviously, you want to be fresh in their mind. You want to make sure, hey, like, no, I'm still here. Like, I still need help with X, Y, and Z. Or, hey, we talked about this. Are you still good?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, like provides that if they come back and try to see something different, they can't turn around and say, oh, I changed my mind on this. Or if they did change their mind, you can show them like, hey, this is what we originally agreed upon. So always great to have follow-ups and put everything in writing, as you kind of communicate and go through. Next, kind of talking into facilities, how you approach like opposite gender locker rooms if you have to deal with that. I know obviously Shannon being head of football, a lot of her job is involved with being a part of the men's locker room. For myself, like I cover all sports, so having to enter and potentially interact in female locker rooms. And so the big thing I always want to express is like how you're entering it, kind of, respecting the personal space of every of their locker rooms. You know, um, Even in your own gender locker rooms, like if you're a male and you're entering a male locker room, it's still respecting their space and their privacy. That's the whole point of the locker room, is for a safe space for them to be able to get changed and get ready for games, practices, etc. um, or thereafter showering and all those different aspects. So, for me, whenever I'm entering and kind of interacting in a female locker room, I always present myself very loudly. Not entering the locker room until like, knocking on the door, asking if anyone is in there first off, I usually come back at another time just because if it's not something that's not urgent, then I'm not going to go ahead and just barge right in. Sometimes they're fine with you entering. Obviously, you want to confirm that everyone is dressed and appropriately attired. And if so, you can always be like, I can come back later. Obviously, there's no, rush to get in there. But also, once you're in there, especially if you're in a locker room after hours, professionalism professionalism of trusting, you're trusted with their stuff. So it's not digging through their personal items, money or phones or whatever is kind of left behind. You want to respect it, that that's their space, even personal garments, and anything that they have in their locker that is personal to them. You want to respect that and kind of, make sure. And that's even with traveling. Like if you're packing bags or doing stuff like that and they leave stuff, you want to ensure that stuff's getting back to them. If they leave, we have kids all the time leaving money in their pockets. And I always make sure to return it to them. I know you want to keep it as a tip, but it's their property, so you want to respect it. And a lot of times I've had kids reach out and say, "Hey, I accidentally left this in my bag, or I left this in, whatever it may be. Can I get that back?" And I'm always like, "Yeah, obviously, if I find in this jewelry, this is wallets, phones, whatever it may be." So you always want to ensure that you're kind of treating their property with respect, and then also within the locker rooms, treating everything with respect. Um, Go ahead, Dan.
I think it's one of those things where it's interesting for me here, because obviously years of working football, like you just go in, you do your thing, go get out, and then you start to realize, just be mindful of the motions of those around you. It seems really dumb and awkward almost, but if they appear uncomfortable, even men's locker room, women's, just leave. I would just walk out, and that's where it's, again, as Quinn said, when you walk in, make it known you're there. Like my women's basketball team, I'm usually here by 4 a.m. right now. I do laundry before anybody else is awake, and I still go in there and I'm screaming my head off, because you never know, and you'd rather be safe than sorry. Then they even tried. The more you make it known too that, hey, this is my policy of coming into the locker room. We had an issue last season, basketball season, with the women's team. They left and a bag was left in the bathroom. I usually don't walk it anywhere near the bathroom for women's basketball. So they tried blaming me, saying I didn't put their bag on the bus. And I was like, guys, I told you at the start of the season, and it's in your handbook, hey, I don't go in the bathroom. I have no need to be in there. I'm staying away from it. And they're like, oh yeah, that is in there. I'm like, yeah, it's on you. It seems crazy, but talk to your coaches, talk to your director of ops, and go, hey, here's my locker room space policy. What is your policy? What do you like to see? Because I don't even really run the locker rooms. The only thing I'm doing is putting laundry away, and again, make yourself known. People aren't comfortable, just get out. You're better off that way. Let them do their thing and just say, hey, let me know when you're done. Or communication with, for our women's basketball team, is great. Hey girls, I know you're all in here. Here's laundry. Could you guys just bring it in and put it away, or set it somewhere, and I will come back later? It's just ask. It's always worth the ask too. Again, as my grandmother always said, a closed mouth don't eat.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even if you want to create signs where you post on the outside of the door saying like, hey, equipment staff is in here currently, like, they can still enter, but obviously they have an understanding that you're in there. Again, kind of making sure that everyone is, you're being appropriate around them and kind of everything that's going on. Like you said, I've had many instances where, female athletes are in their locker rooms, and I just ensure, like, hey, you're comfortable with this happening? Like, obviously I can always come back later and kind of touch base on everything there. And so you can keep going from there. Sorry about
Even
that.
just block the door with the laundry basket
Yeah,
if you can.
just
If
making
you
it
have
known
that.
that you're in there, and kind of and just going from there. Right now, that was kind of all the topics that we had to discuss. I wanted to open the floor to any questions. Obviously, I want to leave a good amount of time for Melly to present a lot of the stuff maybe that she wants to share post convention, things that were talked about in the closing board meeting. But I at least want to have an opportunity to provide for any questions. Does anyone have any questions currently? I don't know if had seen any in the chat. But does anyone have any questions? And you can go ahead and unmute if you have a question and ask it.
Hey,
We have
Quinn,
one in the chat.
Oh, is there?
Yep.
take care of
How
the-
do you handle after hours access to the equipment space?
Great question. Dan, you want to handle that one first?
So we are completely locked down, unfortunately. Like we have a laundry chute you can drop, but you can't get in. Again, my advice is to always just say, hey, like, again, the communication factor. This is when I'm going to be here. This is what my normal working hours. I'm sorry if you need something afterwards, but you guys also have to understand. Again, student athletes have to understand the boundaries. Coaches have to understand the boundaries. I am fortunate enough to work in a space where I know who all has access, and there's cameras in the room and outside of the room. So if there ever was an issue, we're aware. It's not like that for all of our rooms here because we're spread out, but
Yeah, and we're very much the same here. The equipment room is a high security door, so only about 3 people have keys to it. And from there, after hours, it's completely locked down. There's no access to it. Again, like Dan said, we have a laundry chute. And obviously it's communication. If it's, someone contacts me and says, hey, I left this and that, or can you help me out with that? If it's urgent, we can talk about solutions. Otherwise, it's something they might be handled next day. But I think it's very important that you keep a secure area. There's not a lot of people with a lot of access. I've heard stories where people had unlimited access and then they narrowed it down to a handful of keys, and it's really reduced like stuff going missing, or all the various aspects that kind of go into it. So I think the more security and the more you have a lockdown on it, especially after hours, the better off you're going to be as far as everything that kind of goes into it and making sure that everything's secure. From that standpoint, I kind of agree full with what Dan said with everything.
Yeah, basically just a little more context on the question was they hadn't had an equipment manager before. So getting the coaches to buy in, because I'm getting calls and texts on Sunday at 9 o'clock, like, where's my stuff? And I was like, you didn't tell me about it. I would have left it out, like things like that. The number one thing is the keys, but then still getting them on board. So the other part of it is not just the physical access, because what they're doing is taking their own team's stuff. They're not stealing necessarily, because I can tell what's there, but it's like you can't go in on a Sunday at 9 o'clock just because you forgot, or they're blame game management. They're like, oh, the person doing game management forgot balls and I had to go get balls. And I was like, it's insane. I think the amount of people that have keys, but how do you change the culture then, I guess? Because I totally agree with all that. And honestly, your answers hypothetically are easier, but how do you change a culture to get them to buy into, like, I don't break into your office and take things all time of the day, I guess.
start with administration would be my advice.
Yep.
Get them to understand, hey, we have X amount of dollars sitting in here. This is why we need to go further lockdown so we can save money. And when you start showing dollars and cents, especially now with the changes coming, people start to go, oh, all right. It starts at the top with everything. It's from the top down. If you can get the administration to believe, hey, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing this, get them to go to the coaches for you. We get our, excuse my language, asses chewed enough. Like, admin, what do you need from me to show that, hey, this is why we're doing this? This is why it's helping us. And yes, maybe they need something, but that's a communication piece on their part. And if you can get admin to communicate that, I think you put yourself in a better spot.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. It kind of comes from top down. You really just have to go to your administration, your AD, whoever kind of oversees that, and they're the ones who have to put their foot down and say, hey, look, and especially if you write out a policy and you have a written policy, then they can then turn to the coaches and say, hey, look, this is their policy. Like, just like you guys have team rules with your teams, this is their team rule. You either accept it, like, and get on board, or you're going to lose this privilege. It's like anything with, like, in team sports, and stuff like that. The hardest part is the buying in, but if you start presenting dollars and different aspects to them of how much they're replacing and all this other stuff, then yeah, it's going to be really, hit a nail on the head when they understand that this is why we have these rules and regulations. And again, it kind of just comes from your administration and really, again, presenting the facts, being like, here's the money, here's why we need to do this. And then they're the ones you have to just stay on them a lot to push that agenda and push it to the coaches because at the end of the day, they're the boss. It's their department to run. They need to support you on that.
Policy and procedure manual, have them rubber stamp it for you. And understand, hey, this is a living, breathing document. It's same with my budget, anything else that's presented at administration this is a living, breathing document. The world is evolving. We have to evolve and this just can't sit still. Hey, here's what happened. Here's why I want to change this policy. And again, it can be a short, sweet manual. It can be long. It can include everything. Mine includes everything from students to laundry to how visiting team, how we handle inventory, you name it. The more information you provide people, I've found the less questions they have, and they're like, "Oh, this person really has their crap together." Like, that creates buy-in in itself, and maybe that's a better way to go about it to create that buy-in from admin to get the coaches to buy in.
One more question in the chat came up. It's like, do you have a policy for allowing student athletes in the equipment space? I know for us, like my student workers are some student athletes, but only they're restricted, and it's only hours I'm here to oversee those things. No, again, we have very limited access. Only about 3 people have keys. So if I'm not here, then no student athlete is coming in here, and especially like if it's a student athlete that doesn't work for me, they're definitely not allowed in the equipment room without me saying, "Hey, come on in, like we can chat about something." But otherwise, it's a strict barrier of like this is my equipment space. This is like anyone's office. You don't just enter without permission. You don't do anything. This is my space, and we can go from there. But otherwise, no student athlete access. Dan, do you have anything to?
So I walked into a situation here where student athletes were actually uncomfortable with the equipment room. Previous people didn't let anybody in the room and would sit behind a closed door all day. There has to be a happy medium with that. Understand that, hey, yes, this is our space. No, you don't need to be in here unless I'm in here, or hey, come in, let's talk. What do you need? But you can't just live behind a closed door for all your life as an equipment manager, because you're just going to bury yourself more than anything, because you have to be able to create that relationship with those players, with the coaches, with the staff. I mean, all kinds of people walk by your door, possibly, like, build that relationship. It's an opportunity. So when you are in the room, hey, you know what? I have a little bit of time. I could talk. Doors open. Come see me. It's fine. Hey, if you need to get stuff done, close the door and just put a note on the door. I'm here, and go from there. I know my room at least, and a few others usually will put a note on the door and say, "Hey, I'm in here. When to get back to you."
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. Like, obviously, always open door policy. You can come talk, but as far as access for equipment and stuff like that, that's a different story. But again, part of the relationships communication we discussed earlier, want to be an outlet for these student athletes. It's about their experience. It's about their lives. How can we help them? Not just give them free gear. How can we impact their lives and be, mentors for them as they, become young adults? So I think that's where I see that as well. No other questions right now. So I want to give, again, Melly a lot of time to discuss everything following board meeting. So Melly, if you want to take the floor.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Quinn. Everybody for leading that discussion. One thing that I think that we should always add to that is, especially we're still doing a lot of Zoom meetings in our departments, and looking like you're watching and interacting on a Zoom is really important. If you're on a Zoom, not to say that you can't look away here or there, but if you're just not paying any attention at all, especially on departmental meetings, says a lot about your interest in what you do in the professionalism. I think being on these Zooms is great. Look, we've got 115 people here. We've consistently been getting over 100. That says something about our professionalism. Being a member, being certified, That says a lot about being a professional. So I thank all of you for being here, and I think many of you enjoy these monthly meetings. So do I. Thank you. Um, this past year in Atlanta, what had an interesting start. Many of us go in early because of meetings. Excuse me. And it was national news what happened in downtown Atlanta. We had no water, so that meant we had no AC. We had no toilets. We had no drinking water. So we also had no restaurants that were open anywhere near us. So I know a lot of people were even taking Ubers to places all around Atlanta just to use the toilets. So I apologize for that. But it ended up being, they got it figured out and the hotel did as good of a job as they can. As all of you probably know, this was the 50th anniversary of our national conventions, of our association. And that's a historical event, right? We're still here. We're still doing this. 50 years strong. And I'm really excited about that. So I really wanted this convention to be, that's why we were in Atlanta, by the way, if anybody is curious. We selected Atlanta because the first national convention was in Atlanta. So I just wanted to put that out if you're curious about that, maybe a little historical knowledge. And, I think that I said this at the end of the closing board meeting, that not only was it a historic number, but I think there was a lot of historical decisions made at our board meetings. When I first became president 2 years ago, I really talked a lot about a vision that I had for association. And that included making recognition for our certification mean something, have some meat to it. I want us to be stepping out of our equipment rooms and stepping forward professionally. I want us to be recognized for what we're bringing, the value that we're bringing to our departments. And then in turn, I want our association to be bringing value to us. I want the AMA to be your professional home. This is where you go. This is where we get to know one another. So I appreciate everybody that had the opportunity to attend. So let's talk about some of these significant changes I'm talking about. So I think the biggest thing that we've done is, as a board, you made a decision to hire a full-time executive director. We've had many executive directors over the years, John Falk, currently Matt Altoff, and they've all done wonderful jobs, but guess what? They all have had full-time jobs. So, their job scope has been this because we have other full-time obligations. So, one thing I really wanted to do was to hire a full-time equipment manager, and JD from Wyoming really put together a proposal that kind of expanded out that vision that I initially had and put it together. And we've joined a committee, and we, as a board, decided to go ahead and do that. So we've already met, we've hired a committee, we volunteered a committee, and we've been meeting about the person that we want to lead this association as an executive full-time director. And what does that mean to us? That means that their focus isn't just going to be the next convention, the next convention, the next convention. How many dollars and cents do we have? My vision, and I think the committee's and the board's decision, is to have this executive director be kind of more, their focus should be on expansion of who we are, being out, and we're going to send them out to all of these conventions. We're going to be sending them to NACDA. We're going to be sending them to the AFCA. We're going to be sending them to NATA. We're going to be sending them to professional organization, and really get our name out there. We also want to increase people coming to our conventions. We had it was wonderful, this convention. We had over 400 people. Our vendor hall was full. And we had wonderful vendor parties. We had the College Football Hall of Fame, which was really wonderful. The year before, we had food trucks. I really want our convention to be a place of gathering, a home where we see our annual friends, and connect. We had wonderful We had a fireside chat with the AD at Georgia. It was really cool. It was really good to learn about all that kind of stuff. We had wonderful workshops. I think it was, I hope that everybody gets a chance to enjoy our conventions moving forward. Secondarily, the big thing that I think it's going to affect all of our members is we kind of changed up how we're going to, our fee structures. So hiring an executive director before we hit a certain amount of members is a risk right now. I'm going to admit that. It's a risk to us financially, but we have to do it. And so in order to allay some of our fears, my fears about doing that before maybe, let's say, this would be a no-brainer if we had, say, 5,000 members. It's a no-brainer. We'd have done it a long time ago. But we really have to do this. Now is the time. I'm a very patient person, but I'm impatient for our organization. I am patient. We've been kind of just shining the same penny for years and years, for decades and decades. We've been shining this penny, and sure is a pretty penny, but we really need to turn that penny into a nickel now. And I think the way to do that, and the board agreed, we had a lot of discussion about that, was to change our fee structure. So instead of just a membership fee and then convention fee and then all these other fees, we're just going to have a one fee, $300 a year, and that covers everything that you need. So that's going to be coming into place in year 2026. So that has passed. It's kind of like a done deal. So, but I hope that this will give that little cushion. And I would like to add that that's a good deal. It seems like a lot of money, but it really is a fair deal. Ask your fellow strength coaches, ask your fellow ATs what they're paying. So I hope it's not too much of a burden for some. We are going to be offering scholarships and creative ways to help people if they do need that. But I think it's also fair too for people that maybe decide to never go to convention. And so I think the burden's been kind of weird on things. So this is just very simple, very straightforward. And I hope this also helps build out our financial situation a little bit better. I think that I hope everyone enjoyed convention. Did anybody go that had a good time? Yeah, yeah. I think that's everything that I really wanted to share about it. One thing that I heard back from the vendors, that the members showed up in that vendor hall. Vendors pay for our association. We lean on them so much. The cost for our conventions would be 10 times the amount. So, I really wanted to make sure everyone hit that vendor hall and did a really good job, and they did. So vendors really said it was one of the best conventions they've ever had with engagement with members. So thank you to everybody. I also want to send some thank yous. Indulge me for a moment here. I wanted to thank Sam and Kelly. They did a bang up job with convention. There was no glitches that I could think of. We kept those lines down. I want to thank Scoot for the swag. I thought the swag bags this year were phenomenal. I'm proudly displaying my mouse pad and our t-shirts. And hopefully that's like maybe a little enticement for people to get to convention, is the parties, is the good solid workshops, the swag. So Scoot, thank you. Matt and Chris, the executive director, assistant, Katrina, vice president, all the district directors. And I'd like to welcome the new district directors that have come on. Committee members, they come in a day early, and they're doing good work to keep this association moving forward, from membership to exam to continuing education. Paige and her gang there. Thank you for always being there to help improve our association. Anthony, he never gets a shout out. He's in charge of all of our communications and graphics, and I think he does a bang up job. So that's all my thank yous. I hope we're moving our association in the right direction. I hope we're getting it there. I'm doing my best to try to do that. And I hope you all are going to be with me and getting to a better destination, getting to a better place, and being the association that we all deserve. We work a lot, and getting away for a convention is hard sometimes. You know, it's like every year they expect more and more of us as support staff. It's not just the equipment managers. You know, we've got basketball teams coming in. Dan, what time you come in this morning? 4 a.m. I think you said it's summertime. It is summertime. I think when I first started, like 4 years ago, you know, it was basketball ended and you saw them again in the next year. So the expectations are hard for us. And I'm not sure if the pay has gone up with the expectations for our staffs. So that's a goal. So I think we're taking good steps towards that. I'm not here just to be a figurehead. I'm here to really move this thing. Let's get this thing cranking. And I need all of us on this mission. And so I thank you. I'm very humble that I was given this opportunity, and I hope I'm doing a good job. And I hope that you're proud of this association. I hope you're proud to be an equipment manager. And that's my spiel. That's my spiel. And if anybody has any comments or questions about what we're doing, where we're going, I'm more than happy to take questions.
Melly, I have a comment.
Please, Kelly.
I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you for this mentorship committee. Just that we're heading to Las Vegas next year. It will be at Planet Hollywood. I'm just doing a little promoing. So if anybody has any connections where, you know, to try to find that fun event to do for our gathering and stuff, please send them my way. We can get things worked out. We are working on some things with some connections that Scott and Matt already have. So hopefully we'll get something planned out. So yeah, if anybody's got any suggestions or ideas and has contacts, yeah, reach out.
I suggested a magician at our opening meeting, general meeting, you know, but
I kind of shot that down if you didn't notice that.
thanks, Kelly. Always, you know, Kelly keeps me rolling. She keeps me on task, and always, you know, Kelly, I think you're terrific. I just wanted to put that out. No, people don't tell you that enough. I love you, man. Does anybody else have any comments or thoughts about Vegas?
Melly, sorry,
Um,
we do have
please.
a question in the chat, Melly.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
No, we can keep talking about Vegas, but I just want to make sure you can get to that question, because it's about what you were just talking about. So it says, is there a possibility of labeling the membership dues as something else so our colleges can continue to cover the costs through professional development funds?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? I'm not sure if I understood it.
Is there a possibility of labeling the membership dues as something else so our colleges can continue to cover the costs through professional development funds? I just know, like, some schools, it has to be labeled a certain line item in order for it to, like, them to cover it.
Membership due. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? What other?
Yeah, I'll
please.
just throw in
Sorry,
here,
thank you.
Melly. I'll just throw in here, Melly. This is something that Kelly and Matt and Nicole and Troy and I have, as we've seen this evolve, have wanted to write up so the description of that fee can, as we're working on policies and procedures, can reflect all that it covers, so it's appropriately justifiable for professional development. So we're hearing you on that because we want to make sure it all covers it, from a professional development, going to convention, membership, dues, fees. So we hear you on that. And I'm not staring at it right now, but I feel like we literally just discussed this in the last 2 weeks on how to appropriately label that. So that's coming as a suggestion for the board to review.
Thanks, Larry.
Perfect. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Melly, for the update on everything. I shared the QR code. Obviously scan, make sure you're getting your CUs. I'll leave it up here for a minute or two. That way everyone can get their CUs. But otherwise, thank you all so much for, you know, attending this, taking time out of your day. Again, early summer. I know a lot of people on vacation or planning to get on vacation, especially next week with the holiday. So appreciate everyone for showing up. Again, if you have any questions for the membership and mentorship and engagement committee, we're happily, reach out to us. We love suggestions as far as topics to be discussed in these Zoom calls, and as well as anyone looking for mentors, mentees. We'd love to have all of you. So, yes, sir.
Tim from Maryland. There's a bunch of folks in the chat that are saying that the login is not working for the QR code.
Okay. We should.
Okay. Yeah, it's not working for me either, Quinn. I don't know what's going on. I wonder if it's because there's a little mouse.
Oh, my
Yeah.
apologies. My apologies.
I don't actually know how QR codes work, to be honest, so that might
Yeah,
not.
I probably am blocking some things. My apologies.
If we're gonna leave it up for a little bit, stay on if you can. If you are having issues, like if you cannot scan, email me either at my CSU email or the mentorship email, and we'll do it on the back end since we're having issues, but try again and see if it logs in. Log into the equipment, like log into your account first and then scan. Yep, someone just put that in the chat. Yeah, make sure you're logged into the equipmentmanagers.org and then scan the thing. And sometimes that helps. So, but if it doesn't help, email me.
Yes. So again, thank you. Apologies for that. It should work now. But again, if you have any complications, let us know. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Quinn.
Thank you all.
That worked. Thanks.
Now, don't turn it off quite yet. All set. Thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Okay, if you are having issues, it's mentorship.engagement@gmail.com. I put it in the chat a couple times. Try that, or you can email me at katie.wimp@colostate.edu.
Is it possible to give your email again?
Yeah, I put it in the chat. It's mentorship.engagement, AEMA@gmail.com. Or it's katie.wimp, WIMP, @colostate.edu.
COLLINS? Collins State?
Colostate, COLOSTATE like Colorado, but Colo.
Thank you.
Anyone else having issues? Or are we good to end the call?
Unfortunately, it's not working.
Okay, I'm gonna send you a direct message real quick, and then just make sure you have the email and stuff, and then you just send me an email.
Katie, mine is not working as well.
Okay, give me 1 second.
I went to the AEMA website and I logged in with my credentials and that was fine, but it's not letting me get on my phone. It's not letting me get past when I click the login, it's not going anywhere. So
Huh,
Yeah, I have the same problem.
weird. Okay. I just sent you the email to make sure you email, because I'm gonna forget if I as soon as I
Alright.
come here. Who else? There we go. You said that you need it. I'm just DMing you the emails. David. John, if you're still on here, I see you're calling me and I will call you back. But you're not even on here. All right.
I didn't get your email yet, but that's
I sent you like a message in the chat, like a direct message through the Zoom chat.
oh. Okay.
So many.
All right, taking a picture of this before you shut us down.
Okay. Let me just, I'll write a couple names down because I have your email since I'm on just a email. Let's see. All right,
Katie, I just sent you my email.
perfect. Thank you.
I'm in the process. You just
Okay.
need to know that I wasn't able to log on, right? Or
Yep.
I wasn't able to use the code.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much, Kate.
You're welcome. Sorry I didn't work today, guys.
That's all right. Stuff happens.
The only person I don't know who messaged me, your username is TC21. Can you make sure you send me your email? I do not know who that is.
Yeah, Katie, that was me, Tom Connor.
Say that again, sorry.
That was me that messaged you, Tom Connor. I'll send you my email.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
helps.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, so I'll add you guys to my list.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Thank you, Katie.
Of course.
All good?
I think everyone else is just blank screens.
Yeah. Okay. I have one more from Dan Desplaines, and I'll send. You want me to try to send him the QR code again, or I can just.
Email me. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I know.
got-
Like, I think at one point my cursor was over, and that messed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But I scanned it and it worked fine. So I think people just weren't logged in, because I think once you're logged in and then you try to or like you scan it, you have to log in. I think you have to close out that page, the page, and then try to rescan it.
Yeah.
So I'll see.
I probably got 10 messages.
Okay.
So
I'll shoot you a quick email with his email just so you can add it to your list.
perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
I think we're good to close it.
Yep. See you soon.
Bye.